Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his warship and watched the stars. His green scales caught the light from the control panels around him. He was the leader of the strongest alien fleet in the galaxy. 4 different alien races had joined together for this mission. They all feared the same thing: the humans were coming. For 3 months they had listened to signals from a small blue planet called Earth. The signals showed terrible things. The aliens saw humans fighting each other with metal weapons. They saw humans throwing each other to the ground for fun. They saw humans hitting each other until blood came out. The humans even watched these fights for entertainment. "Sir, we have more signals from the Deathworld," said his aide, a tall insect-like creature named Zeke. The Zephyrite always spoke in clicking sounds, but their translation devices made the words clear. Vextar turned his large head toward the screen. More images flowed across it. Humans in metal armor hitting each other with swords. Humans jumping from great heights with only cloth to slow them down. Humans racing in metal machines that moved faster than most alien spacecraft. "Look at this," whispered Aquan Telshi, the water-breathing delegate from the ocean world of Thalassa. Her voice came through the water tank that kept her alive on the ship. "They put themselves in danger for no reason. They must be the most violent species in the galaxy." The 4th member of their group said nothing. Lux Prime was made of living, crystal and light. It did not speak often, but when it did, the others listened. Its body glowed brighter when it was worried, and right now it was very bright. Vextar had fought in many wars. He had conquered 12 worlds for his empire. He had never been afraid of any enemy. But these humans scared him. They lived on a world that tried to kill them every day. Their planet had storms that could destroy cities. It had animals with teeth longer than Krillian swords. It had diseases that could kill in hours. Yet the humans not only survived, they seemed to enjoy the danger. "Sir," called out the navigation officer, "the human ship will be here in 6 hours." The bridge became very quiet. Everyone knew what this meant. First contact with the most dangerous species they had ever discovered. The ship was called the New Horizon, according to their signals. It was much smaller than any of their warships, but that did not make the aliens feel better. Small meant fast, fast meant deadly. "Have all weapons ready," Vextar ordered. "But do not fire unless they attack first. We must follow the galactic code for first contact." On the other side of the galaxy, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his chair and smiled. He was a tall man, with brown hair and kind eyes. He had been chosen to lead this mission because he was good at talking to people. The Earth government hoped he would be good at talking to aliens too. "Lisa, how much longer until we reach the meeting point?" he asked. Lisa Chang looked up from her pilot controls. She was small but tough, with black hair tied back in a simple style. "About 6 hours, Captain. The aliens are already waiting for us." In the engine room, Carlos Rodriguez was making sure everything worked perfectly. He was a big man with gentle hands who could fix anything. He hummed while he worked, a habit that made the whole crew feel calm. Dr. Amy Foster was in her cabin, preparing for the most important day of her life. She was a cultural expert who studied how different people lived and thought. She had learned everything she could about the 4 alien races they were going to meet. She hoped to help both sides understand each other. "This is amazing," she said to herself as she looked at her notes. "We're about to meet beings from other worlds. What stories will they tell? What can we learn from each other?" She had prepared gifts to show the aliens what humans were like. She had pictures of Earth's most beautiful places. She had recordings of music that made people cry with joy. She had small sculptures that showed the best of human art. Amy did not know that the aliens thought humans were monsters. Back on the alien ship, the 4 commanders met in a large room. The walls were covered with weapons from their different worlds. Vextar's sword hung next to Zik's poison stingers. Telshi's water weapons were displayed near Lux Prime's energy crystals. "What do we know about their ship?" asked Vextar. "It carries only 50 humans," said Zik, his antenna twitching with nervousness. "But that might be enough. Each human might be equal to 10 of our warriors." "Their leader is called Jake Morrison," added Telshi. The signals show he has fought in their military. He knows how to kill. Lux Prime finally spoke, its crystal body flashing with worried light. They bring something called a cultural exchange team. This might be their way of studying us before they attack. The aliens did not understand that humans wanted to be friends. They looked at everything through the eyes of warriors. When humans smiled, the aliens saw them showing their teeth like predators. When humans walked upright and confident, the aliens saw the stance of apex hunters. "We must be ready for anything," said Vextar. "These Deathworlders have survived things that would kill our strongest warriors. They might be more dangerous than we can imagine." As the human ship came closer, both sides prepared for a meeting that would change everything. The humans packed their gifts with excitement, thinking about all the wonderful things they would learn. The aliens checked their weapons and shields, expecting to meet the most terrifying enemies they had ever faced. Neither side knew that they were completely wrong about the other. Neither side knew that this meeting would not be about war or conquest. It would be about something the aliens had never truly understood. It would be about the power of beauty to change the universe. The first meeting happened on a space station between the two fleets. The station was neutral ground, built by the Galactic Council for meetings like this. It had white walls and bright lights that made everyone feel safe. But today, nobody felt safe. Captain Jake Morrison walked through the airlock with a big smile on his face. This was the greatest day in human history. Behind him came Dr. Amy Foster, carrying a bag full of gifts. Lisa Chang and Carlos Rodriguez followed, both excited to meet their first aliens. Jake raised his hand in greeting, showing his palm to the aliens. It was a sign of peace that humans had used for thousands of years. But the aliens saw something different. They saw a human showing the size of his hand, displaying how easily he could grab and crush things. Commander Vextar took a step back. The human was tall and moved like a hunter. His smile showed white teeth that looked very sharp. The alien commander had never seen a more frightening sight. "Greetings," Jake said in a friendly voice. "I am Captain Morrison of Earth. We come in peace." The translation devices worked perfectly, but the words did not help. To the aliens, the human's calm voice sounded like the quiet threat of a predator that knew it was stronger than its prey. Dr. Amy stepped forward with her bag of gifts. "We have brought some things to share with you, things that show what humans are like." Zeke's compound eyes fixed on the bag. What weapons did it contain? What tools of death had these Deathworlders brought to show their power? "We accept your offerings," said Vextar carefully. He gestured to his guards, who moved closer. Their hands were near their weapons, ready for anything. The humans sat down at a large round table. They moved with easy confidence, their backs straight and their eyes alert. To them, this was just good posture. To the aliens, it looked like the stance of warriors who were always ready to fight. Lisa stretched her arms above her head, working out the tightness from the long flight. The aliens saw this as a display of reach and flexibility. They imagined those arms wrapping around enemies like the tentacles of a space squid. Carlos laughed at something Jake whispered, and the sound made all the aliens freeze. The laugh was deep and rich, coming from a broad chest. The aliens heard the roar of an apex predator celebrating a successful hunt. "Please," said Amy, opening her bag, "let us show you some of our culture." She pulled out a small device that could show pictures and play sounds. The aliens leaned back, expecting some kind of weapon. Instead, she set it gently on the table and touched the screen with one finger. Music began to play. The aliens had never heard anything like it. The sounds were complex and layered, with different instruments playing different parts that somehow fit together perfectly. It was a piece by a human named Bach, full of mathematical precision but also deep emotion. Vextar's clawed hands gripped the edge of the table. What was this? The sounds went straight into his mind, making him feel things he had no words for. His warrior training had not prepared him for this kind of attack. Zeke's antennae twitched wildly. The hive mind that connected all Zephyrite began to flutter and break apart. Each member of his species was suddenly aware of being an individual, something that had never happened before. Telshi's gills opened and closed rapidly in her water tank. The music seemed to flow through the water like ocean currents, carrying emotions deeper than the deepest trenches of her home world. Lux Prime's crystal body began to resonate with the music, creating patterns of light that had never existed before. The living crystal felt something new happening inside its consciousness, something it could not name or understand. "This is what we call music," Amy explained, not noticing how still the aliens had become. "Humans create it to express feelings and ideas that words cannot capture. Create." The word hit the aliens like a physical blow. These Deathworlders did not just consume and destroy. They made things. They brought new sounds into existence for no purpose other than beauty. Amy touched the screen again, and the music changed. Now it was a song by someone called Mozart, light and playful like children laughing. Then came something by Beethoven, powerful and dramatic like a thunderstorm made of pure emotion. "We have thousands of different types of music," Amy continued. "Every human culture has its own sounds and rhythms. Some music makes us want to dance. Some makes us think about the people we love. Some helps us remember those who have died." The aliens could not move. Their entire understanding of the universe was breaking apart. Music was not a weapon. It was not a tool for survival. It served no practical purpose at all. Yet somehow it was the most powerful thing they had ever encountered. Jake noticed their silence and thought they might be bored. "Amy, maybe show them some visual art?" Amy smiled and touched the screen again. Images began to appear. First came paintings from human caves, made by people who lived thousands of years ago. Simple drawings of animals and handprints, but somehow beautiful. Then came paintings by masters like Van Gogh and Picasso. Colors swirled across the screen like living things. Shapes that looked impossible somehow made perfect sense. Each image showed the world through different human eyes, revealing that there were as many ways to see reality as there were humans to see it. "This one is called Starry Night," Amy said, showing a painting of the sky filled with swirling stars. The artist painted what the night sky felt like to him, not just what it looked like, felt like. The aliens struggled with this concept. How could the sky feel like anything? How could humans see emotions in distant stars? Commander Vexistar stared at a painting of a human warrior carved from white stone. The statue showed strength and beauty at the same time. It was called David, and it made the alien commander's hands shake. In his culture, warriors were made for fighting. But this human warrior was made to be beautiful. "Why do you create these things?" whispered Telshi, her voice bubbling through the water. "What purpose do they serve?" Amy looked surprised by the question. "They don't serve a purpose. That's what makes them art. We make them because we love beauty. We make them because we must. Must." The word hung in the air like a challenge to everything the aliens believed. These terrifying Deathworlders did not just survive on their dangerous planet. They created beauty because they could not help themselves. The meeting continued, but the aliens barely heard the rest of the conversation. Their minds were trying to process what they had learned. The humans were not just warriors. They were not just survivors. They were creators of impossible beauty, and that made them more alien than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Dr. Amy Foster could see that something was wrong. The aliens sat very still like statues made of flesh and crystal and water. Their eyes were wide, and some of them were making small sounds of distress. She thought they might be getting bored. "With the pictures, maybe music would be better," she said softly. She touched her device and selected something special. "This is one of our greatest pieces. It was written by a human named Beethoven when he could no longer hear sounds. He felt the music in his mind and heart." The opening notes of the 9th symphony filled the room, soft and questioning at first, like someone waking up from a long sleep. Then the music grew stronger, building layer by layer until it became something magnificent. Commander Vextard tried to move, but his body would not obey him. The music wrapped around his mind like invisible chains. He had conquered worlds, led armies into battle, and never felt fear. But this human creation was doing something to him that no weapon ever could. The symphony reached the part where human voices joined the instruments. The choir sang in an old human language, but the translation devices gave the aliens the meaning. They sang about joy, about all living beings becoming brothers, about a cosmic creator who loved every star in the sky. Zeke felt his connection to the hive mind break completely. For the first time in his life, he was truly alone in his own thoughts. But instead of being terrified, he felt something wonderful. He was himself, he was unique. The music had given him his own soul. In her water tank till she began to cry. Her people had no word for what she was feeling. The music spoke of emotions deeper than the deepest ocean currents. It spoke of love that could span the space between stars. Lux Prime's crystal body was changing colors faster than ever before. The living light creature was experiencing something beyond its understanding. The music was teaching it that there were patterns in the universe more beautiful than any it had ever seen. Amy watched the aliens with growing concern. "Are you all right? Should I turn it off?" "No," whispered Vextar, his voice cracking. "Please, let it continue." The symphony played on, and with each note, the aliens felt their old understanding of the universe crumble away. They had spent their entire lives believing that strength came from the ability to destroy. But this music was pure creation, and it was stronger than any weapon they had ever seen. When the symphony ended, the room fell into complete silence. The aliens sat frozen, their minds trying to process what had just happened to them. Amy decided to try something different. She pulled out a piece of paper and a small stick of graphite. "This is how we make pictures by hand," she explained. She began to draw, her hand moving quickly across the paper. The aliens watched in amazement as an image appeared from nothing. Amy was drawing their faces, capturing not just how they looked, but something deeper. She drew Vextar's strength and hidden kindness. She drew Zik's new individual spirit. She drew Telshi's deep wisdom and Lux Prime's ancient light. "You are making us exist," breathed Zik, staring at his own image on the paper. "You are creating us from emptiness." Amy smiled. "All art is creation. We take nothing and make it into something beautiful." She reached into her bag again and pulled out a small carved figure. It was made of wood and showed a human mother holding her child. The carving was simple but perfect, showing love in every line. "My grandfather made this," Amy said. "He was not a famous artist. He was just a farmer who loved to carve wood in the evenings. He made it for my grandmother when my father was born." Vextar reached out with a shaking hand to touch the carving. The wood was smooth and warm. Someone had spent hours making this, not for money or fame, but just to show love. The alien commander had never seen anything so powerful. "On our world," Amy continued, "almost every human creates something. We write stories, we sing songs, we paint pictures, we carve wood, we make gardens grow in beautiful patterns. We cannot help ourselves. Creating beauty is part of what makes us human." Telshi spoke through her water, her voice full of wonder. "But why? What do you gain from this?" Amy thought for a moment. "We gain everything. Art makes life worth living. It helps us understand each other. It shows us that we are more than just animals trying to survive." She touched her device again and played a different kind of music. This time it was a simple song sung by one human voice, with only a guitar for accompaniment. The song was about a man who loved a woman, and how that love made even ordinary things seem magical. "This singer is not famous," Amy explained. "He is just a regular person who wanted to share his feelings. Millions of humans do this. We all have music inside us." The aliens listened to the simple song, and somehow it affected them even more than the great symphony. This was not made by a master. This was made by someone like them, someone ordinary who had found something beautiful to say. Captain Jake Morrison had been watching quietly, letting Amy do her work. Now he spoke for the first time in many minutes. "Dr. Foster, show them the poem." Amy nodded and found a file on her device. This was written by a human woman named Maya Angelou. She wrote about rising above pain and finding strength in beauty. She read the words aloud, and the aliens felt each line hit them like gentle lightning. The poem spoke of caged birds that sang not because they were happy, but because they had songs that needed to be sung. It spoke of humans who had suffered, but chose to create beauty anyway. When the poem ended, Commander Vextar finally understood what he was seeing. These humans were not just warriors. They were warriors who fought to protect something precious. They fought to protect beauty, love, and the right to create. "You are not what we thought," he said slowly. "We believed you were destroyers, but you are builders." Amy smiled sadly. "We can be both. Humans have done terrible things to each other. We have fought wars and caused great pain. But we have always tried to create something beautiful from the ashes." Lisa Chang, who had been quiet during the presentation, suddenly spoke up. "Captain, may I?" Jake nodded, and Lisa reached into her pocket. She pulled out a small harmonica, a simple instrument that she always carried with her. Without saying anything, she began to play. The song was soft and sweet, like a lullaby that a mother might sing to her child. Lisa had learned it from her grandmother, who had learned it from her grandmother before that. It was a song about coming home after a long journey. The simple melody broke the last of the aliens' resistance. They realized that these humans carried music with them like other species carried weapons. Beauty was so much a part of them that even their starship pilots kept instruments ready to share. When Lisa finished playing, the room stayed silent for a long time. Finally, Lux Prime spoke, its crystal voice ringing like bells. "We understand. Now," it said, "you are not Deathworlders because you love death. You are Deathworlders because you love life so much that you will face any danger to protect it." The revelation hung in the air like a new star being born. The aliens finally understood what they were really looking at. They were not meeting the galaxy's most dangerous predators. They were meeting its greatest artists, and that made them more powerful than any weapon ever created. The aliens could not move. They sat around the table like broken machines, their minds trying to understand something that challenged everything they believed about life in the universe. Commander Vextar stared at his own hands. They were strong, hands made for holding weapons and crushing enemies. He had used them to conquer 12 worlds. But now he wondered what else these hands might do. Could they create something beautiful? Could they make music or carve wood like the humans did? Thought scared him more than any battle he had ever fought. Zeke felt his individual consciousness growing stronger with each passing moment. The hive mind that had connected him to his people was still broken, and he was glad. For the first time, he could think his own thoughts without the noise of a million other voices in his head. "I want to understand," he said, his voice shaking. "How do you learn to make these things? Are you born knowing how to create beauty?" Dr. Amy Foster smiled gently. "No, we have to learn. Human children start making art before they can even talk properly. They draw pictures with their fingers. They sing made-up songs. They dance to music that only they can hear." She touched her device and showed them videos of human children. The aliens watched small humans scribbling with colorful sticks, their faces serious with concentration. They saw children singing songs that made no sense but sounded happy anyway. They saw tiny dancers spinning around until they fell down laughing. "Every human is born with the need to create," Amy explained. "Some become great artists, but most just make small, beautiful things for themselves and the people they love." Telshi spoke from her water tank, her voice full of sadness. "We have nothing like this. In our culture, everything must have a purpose. Everything must help us survive or fight or grow stronger. We have never made anything just because it was beautiful." Captain Jake Morrison leaned forward. "What do your people do when they are not working or fighting?" The question hit the aliens like a cold wind. They looked at each other, trying to find an answer. What did they do? They trained for war. They improved their weapons. They planned their next conquest. But what did they do for joy? We do not have a word for what you are asking," admitted Commander Vextar. "We rest between battles, we eat, we repair our equipment, but we do not do things just for pleasure." Carlos Rodriguez had been listening quietly, But now he spoke up. That sounds terrible. No offense, but how do you live without music? Without stories? Without something beautiful to look at? He pulled out a small notebook from his pocket. The pages were filled with drawings he had made during quiet moments on the ship. Sketches of stars and planets, drawings of his crewmates, pictures of machines that existed only in his imagination. I draw when I cannot sleep, Carlos explained. It helps me feel calm. Sometimes I draw real things. Sometimes I make up new things. It does not matter if anyone else ever sees them. I make them because I need to. The alien stared at the notebook like it was a magical object. Here was proof that humans created beauty, even when no one was watching. They did not make art to impress others or gain power. They made it because something inside them demanded it. Lux Prime's crystal body was pulsing with new patterns of light. We have spent 10,000 years believing that only survival mattered. We thought that anything which did not help us live or fight was weakness. But you show us that we have been living half-lives. Amy nodded sadly. We humans have a saying. Man does not live by bread alone. It means that just staying alive is not enough. We need beauty and meaning and joy, or we are not really living at all. She showed them more art on her device, paintings that had been made in caves thousands of years ago, when humans were struggling just to survive. Even then, even when every day was a battle against hunger and cold and dangerous animals, humans had found time to create beauty. Look at this, she said, showing them a painting of a horse running across a cave wall. The person who made this was probably cold and hungry. They might have been hiding from predators, but they still took time to make something beautiful. They still felt the need to show others how wonderful a running horse could be. Vextar felt something wet on his face and realized he was crying. His people did not cry often, and never in front of others, but he could not stop the tears. The cave painting showed him everything his civilization had lost without ever knowing it existed. We are broken, he whispered. We are incomplete creatures. Zeke was touching the table with his long fingers, trying to imagine how it would feel to make something with his own hands. Could you teach us? Could we learn to create beauty? Anyone can learn, said Amy gently. It might take time, and your art would be different from ours, but every thinking being can create something beautiful if they try. She reached into her bag one more time and pulled out simple supplies, paper, colored pencils, and clay that could be shaped into figures. She placed them on the table in front of the aliens. Try, she said. Do not worry about making something good. Just try to make something that pleases you. The aliens stared at the supplies like they were looking at alien technology. Slowly, carefully, Vextar reached for a piece of paper and a pencil. His large, clawed hand looked clumsy holding the small tool, but he managed to make a mark on the paper. The mark was just a line, but it was a line that had never existed before. Vexitar had created something from nothing. Zeke picked up some clay and began to shape it with his insect fingers. He did not know what he was making, but his hands seemed to know. Slowly, a small figure began to appear. It looked like a zephyrite, but not like any real zephyrite. It was how Zeke imagined a zephyrite might look if it were free and happy and individual. Telshi could not touch the supplies in her water tank, but she began to hum. The sound was unlike anything her people had ever made. It was music, simple and pure, coming from her heart instead of her mind. Lux Prime focused its energy and began to create patterns of light in the air. The lights danced and swirled, forming shapes that had never existed before. It was visual music, a symphony of color and movement. The humans watched in wonder as the aliens took their first steps into a new world. It was the world of creation, where anything was possible and beauty was its own reward. This is how it begins, Amy said softly. One mark, one shape, one note at a time. You are becoming artists. The aliens worked in silence, lost in the strange joy of making something beautiful. For the first time in their long history, they were not thinking about war or survival or conquest. They were thinking about beauty, and it was changing them from the inside out. The paralysis was breaking, but not in the way anyone expected. They were not becoming warriors again. They were becoming something new, something their species had never been before. They were becoming creators. Commander Vextar looked at the small drawing he had made and felt something change inside his chest. It was just a simple picture of a tree. But it was his tree. No one else in the universe had ever seen this exact tree before because it had come from his own mind. He set down the pencil and looked at Captain Jake Morrison. I need to ask you something important. If your people can create such beauty, why do you also make war? We have seen your history. We know you fight each other. The question hung in the air like a challenge. The other aliens stopped their own, creating, and waited for the answer. This was the puzzle they could not solve. How could the same species make both magnificent art and terrible weapons? Jake was quiet for a moment, thinking carefully about his words. We fight because we have something worth protecting. Every war in our history, every battle we have ever fought, was about keeping something precious safe. We fight so that children can grow up free to make art. We fight so that people can sing songs without fear. We fight because we would rather die than live in a world without beauty. Dr. Amy Foster nodded. There is an old human saying, if you want peace, prepare for war. But for humans, it really means if you want to protect beautiful things, be ready to fight for them. She showed them images on her device. Pictures of human soldiers, but not the violent scenes the aliens had seen before. These were pictures of soldiers protecting museums during wars, soldiers saving art from burning buildings, soldiers who risked their lives to keep libraries and concerts and theaters safe. This is why we seem so fierce to you, explained Carlos Rodriguez. We are not fighting because we love violence. We are fighting because we love everything that is not violent. Zeke held up his small clay figure. It was rough and simple, but it was the first thing he had ever made just because he wanted to. You mean your strength comes from having things you care about more than your own lives? Yes, said Jake simply. A human who has nothing to protect is just surviving. A human who has something beautiful to protect will move mountains. Lisa Chang picked up her harmonica again and played a different tune. This one was sadder, slower, like music for remembering people who had died. This song is for soldiers who gave their lives protecting others. We do not sing it because we love war. We sing it because we love what they saved. The melody filled the room with a kind of beautiful sadness. The aliens felt tears they did not know they could cry. They understood now that human violence and human art came from the same source, a love so deep that it would accept any sacrifice. Lux Prime's crystal body pulsed with new understanding. You are warriors in service of beauty. You are soldiers, whose mission is to protect the right to create. That is exactly right, said Amy. Every human child who draws a picture, every person who sings in the shower, every amateur who carves wood in their garage, they can only do these things because other humans were willing to fight to keep them free. Commander Vextar felt his entire worldview crumbling and rebuilding itself. What have we been doing all these years? We have built our entire civilization around conquest and power, but we have never built anything worth conquering. Telshi spoke from her water tank, her voice full of wonder and regret. We have been fighting over empty worlds. We have been gathering treasures that have no real value. We thought strength was everything, but we had no idea what strength was really for. The realization hit all the aliens at the same time. They were the broken ones. They were the incomplete civilization. They had spent thousands of years becoming perfect at fighting, but they had never learned what was worth fighting for. We want to learn, said Zik, his individual voice growing stronger. Not just how to make art, but how to live like you do. How to have things worth protecting. How to be complete beings instead of just warriors. Jake looked around the table, at the 4 alien commanders. They no longer seemed like terrifying enemies. They seemed like children who had just discovered that the world was bigger and more wonderful than they had ever imagined. We can teach you, he said, but it will not be easy. Learning to create is harder than learning to destroy. Learning to love something is harder than learning to conquer it. Amy pulled out more supplies from her seemingly endless bag. We can start small. music, drawing, simple crafts. But the real change has to come from inside. You have to decide that beauty matters more than power. Commander Vextar made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. He stood up and formally addressed the humans using the ancient words his people used for the most serious occasions. Captain Morrison, Dr. Foster, I make a request on behalf of all our species. We ask not for a military alliance or a trade agreement. We ask for something we have never asked for before. We ask for teachers. We ask you to come to our worlds and show our people what we have been missing. The other aliens immediately agreed. Zik spoke for his newly individual people. Telshi represented the deep ocean worlds. Lux Prime glowed with the agreement of all crystalline beings. We will come, said Amy, tears in her eyes. We will bring musicians and artists and writers. We will show you how to see beauty in your own worlds, but you must promise us something in return. Anything, said Vextar. Promise us that you will teach your children to create before you teach them to fight. Promise us that your people will learn to love something before they learn to protect it. The aliens promised, and in that moment, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted forever. Not through conquest or war, but through the simple act of sharing a song. The meeting ended with an agreement unlike any in galactic history. The humans would send cultural ambassadors to alien worlds. The aliens would send students to Earth. Both sides would learn from each other, but more importantly, the aliens would learn to be complete beings for the first time. As the fleets prepared to separate, the aliens carefully stored recordings of human art in the most protected areas of their ships. They treated these files with more care than they had ever shown their most powerful weapons. Music and paintings and poems were now their most precious. Cargo Dr. Amy Foster made the final log entry of the mission. Today we learned something amazing about the universe. The pen truly is mightier than the sword, but not because it can defeat weapons. It is mightier because it can make weapons unnecessary. We did not conquer alien warriors with our guns or our ships. We conquered them with a song and a simple drawing. Perhaps this is humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy, not the ability to fight, but the ability to show others what is worth fighting for. On the alien ships, 4 species began their first experiments with creation. They hummed strange, new melodies. They drew pictures that no one had asked them to make. They shaped clay into forms that served no purpose except to be beautiful. The galaxy would never be the same. The age of endless war was ending, not with a final battle, but with the first notes of a cosmic symphony written by beings who had learned at last how to sing.